Hey everyone, and welcome to Real Talk Grimm Edition. I'm your host Josh, and this is the place where we dive into the dark, whimsical world of the Brothers Grimm. Whether you're a longtime fan of fairy tales or just starting to discover them, you're in the right spot. Each episode, I'll read a classic Grimm's fairy tale and then explore its deeper meanings, lessons, and how it may apply to our modern culture. From the well-known stories like Cinderella to more obscure ones that still carry a punch, we're going to get into what makes these tales so timeless, and sometimes downright eerie. But this isn't just about reading stories. It's about peeling back the layers and looking at what these stories really teach us. The Grimm brothers didn't shy away from showing the darker side of life. And in many ways, those darker elements hold some of the most powerful messages. Whether it's about good versus evil, human nature, or just the consequences of choices. So whether you're here for the ride of a familiar story or to uncover something you haven't heard before, stick with me as we explore the fascinating and sometimes twisted world of Grimm's fairy tales. Today, we'll be discussing the story Sweet Porridge. So grab your favorite drink, sit back, and enjoy the tale. Sweet Porridge. There was a poor but good little girl who lived alone with her mother, and they no longer had anything to eat. So the child went into the forest, and there an aged woman met her who was aware of her sorrow, and presented her with a little pot, which, when she said, "Cook, little pot, cook," would cook good, sweet porridge. And when she said, "Stop, little pot," it ceased to cook. The girl took the pot home to her mother, and now they were freed from their poverty and hunger, and ate sweet porridge as often as they chose. Once on a time when the girl had gone out, her mother said, "Cook, little pot, cook." And it did cook, and she ate till she was satisfied, and then, when she wanted the pot to stop cooking, but did not know the word, so it went on cooking, and the porridge rose over the edge, and still it cooked on until the kitchen and the whole house were full, and then the next house, and then the whole street, just as if it wanted to satisfy the hunger of the whole world. And there was the greatest of distress, but no one knew how to stop it. At last, when only one single house remained, the child came home and just said, "Stop, little pot." And it stopped and gave up cooking, and whosoever wished to return to the town had to eat his way back. All right, so we just heard Sweet Porridge, and on the surface, it's a pretty simple, almost whimsical little story. Magic pot makes endless food. Things get out of control. Chaos ensues, and then, poof, problem solved within just a few words. But, as with most of the Grimm tales, there's a lot going on here underneath the surface. At its core, this story is really about control. Having it, losing it, and the consequences of not knowing how to manage something powerful. The little girl here is given a gift, the magical pot, and she knows how to use it properly. But the moment someone else, in this case her mother, tries to take over without knowing the full picture, things spiral into disaster. And honestly, that feels pretty timeless, right? How often do we see problems arise because someone just jumped into something without the right knowledge or preparation? So the moral. Let's break it down because there are a few big ideas at play here. First is knowledge and responsibility matter. The girl knew both how to start and stop the pot. Her mother, on the other hand, only knew how to get it going. And that tiny gap in knowledge is what causes the whole mess. It's a great example of how having power, whether that's wealth, technology, or even leadership, without understanding how to use it responsibly, can backfire in a big way. And then moderation is key, because on the flip side, the story also suggests that too much of a good thing can quickly turn bad. The porridge starts off as a gift. It's a way to keep from starving. But when it keeps flowing, unchecked, it becomes a disaster. And that's true of so many things in life. Food, money, technology, even entertainment. Ever binge watch a show until you're too exhausted to function? Same idea. And then there's also the idea that the right hands make all the difference. Ultimately, here it's the little girl, the one who was originally entrusted with the pot, who comes back and fixes everything. And that says a lot about the importance of putting power, tools, and resources in the hands of people who actually know how to use them. It's not enough to just have something valuable. It needs to be managed wisely. But how does this story relate to the modern world? Well, I think what makes Sweet Porridge still relevant today is that it speaks to issues we're dealing with right now. Technology and information overload. Think of the porridge as the internet. We have access to more information than ever before. But if we don't know how to sort through it, if we don't know when to stop consuming or how to separate fact from fiction, it can overwhelm us. Social media, 24-hour news cycles, AI-generated content. It's all great in moderation, but too much, it can flood our lives, just like that never-ending porridge. And then there's environmental and resource management. This story could easily be read as a warning about overproduction and waste. We live in a world where food waste is a huge issue. Tons of perfectly good food gets thrown out daily, while others go hungry. The porridge that overflows and fills the town can be seen as a metaphor of how mismanaged abundance can be just as much of a problem as scarcity. And then there's the idea of consumerism and greed. The idea that more is always better is something we see all the time, whether it's shopping, eating, or just chasing that next big thing. But Sweet Porridge reminds us that if we don't have control over what we consume, we may just end up drowning in it. So, at the end of the day, Sweet Porridge is a lot more than just a quirky little fairy tale. It's a cautionary story about balance. Having enough is good. Having too much without control can be disastrous. And knowing when to stop and how, that's the real power. What do you think? Does this story remind you of anything in your own life? Always let me know your thoughts. And that's going to wrap up this episode of Real Talk Grimm Edition. I hope you enjoyed diving into Sweet Porridge with me and its deeper meanings as much as I enjoyed sharing with you. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you have thoughts on today's tale, whether you agree, disagree, or just have your own take, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach out on social media at Real Talk on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, or send an email to therealtalk@gmail.com. Let me know what you think or just say hi. And if you're enjoying the show, consider leaving a rating or review. It really helps others find us and keep the conversation going. If you're into movies, check us out on our 2 other channels. There's Real Talk, where we just discuss movies in general. And then there's Real Talk Horror Edition, if you're into those darker, spookier tales. But for now, thanks for listening. And until next time, stay curious, question the stories around you, and keep exploring the darker side of fairy tales.